I'll tell you what I discovered. When I made millions and lost it all by 33, the money wasn't the real wealth. The true fortune was the person I became in the process. See, money comes and goes, but discipline, vision, and character stay. That's why you don't just set goals to get things, you set goals to become someone. Ask yourself, what will this make of me if I go for it? Because the real prize isn't the car, the house, or the check. The real prize is you, stronger, wiser, more valuable. And when you become more, you'll attract more. Money is one of the greatest servants you can ever have, but it makes for a terrible master. If you use it wisely, it will extend your reach, multiply your opportunities, and help you build the life you've imagined. But if you let money control you, it will dictate your decisions, rob your peace, and keep you running in circles. The question is never whether money is good or bad. It's neutral. The real question is, who's in charge? You or the money? I learned this lesson the hard way when I was young and first came into some serious income. I thought money itself was the goal. I spent it on things that sparkled and faded, always chasing the next purchase, the next comfort, the next luxury. But soon enough, I realized the money was running me, I wasn't running it. My decisions weren't based on vision or discipline, they were based on impulse. And impulse is the enemy of wealth. The strategy is to put money in its rightful place. Give every dollar a job. Some dollars should go to necessities, some to investments, some to growth, and some to contribution. That way, money is aligned with your goals, not pulling you off track. It's not about the amount, it's about the structure. Even with small sums, if you manage them intentionally, you build the foundation for freedom. So here's a practical step you can take immediately. Write down your top 3 financial goals and ask yourself, is my money serving these goals? Or am I just serving my money? Then adjust how you spend, save, and invest to match that vision. When you master this shift, you'll discover money is not the master of your life, it's the servant that helps you create it. It's not the money that makes a person wealthy. I've known people who earned a fortune only to watch it slip through their fingers because they hadn't grown into the kind of person who could handle it. Wealth without wisdom is like pouring water into a cracked vessel. It leaks away no matter how much you fill it. What truly matters is not what you get, but what you become in the process. Because when you become more, you can attract and sustain more. I remember when I first began to see some success. The check started getting bigger, and I thought the money itself was the victory. But money is deceptive. It can exaggerate your weaknesses if you don't have discipline. It can amplify your mistakes if you don't have maturity. Early on, I made foolish choices simply because I hadn't done the personal work. I had income, but I didn't yet have the character to protect it. And when that money left, it was a painful but priceless lesson. I realized the secret wasn't just in making money, it was in becoming a steward worthy of it. That means you focus on development before dollars. You learn how to manage your emotions so greed or fear doesn't dictate your choices. You grow the discipline to save before you spend, to delay gratification, to invest in things that last rather than chasing what fades. You cultivate humility, to seek wisdom from those who've walked the path before you. So here's something you can do right now. Commit a portion of your income, no matter how small, to your own education. Books, courses, mentorships. Because the best return on investment is not in a stock or a property. It's in you. When you grow yourself into the kind of person who can handle wealth, the money will not only come, it will stay. Wages will give you a living, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you stop there, you'll always be trading time for money, and time is limited. You can only work so many hours, only put in so much effort before the day runs out. That's why wages alone will never make you wealthy. Wages make a living, but profits make a fortune. Profits set you free. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I thought if I just worked harder, put in longer hours, things would change. But then I looked at the people who had what I wanted, the freedom, the options, the security, and I realized they weren't living on wages alone. They had profits. They had businesses, investments, ideas that worked for them even when they weren't working. That's the shift, moving from labor to leverage. The beauty of profits is they don't require you to multiply your hours. They require you to multiply your value. You can take an idea, package it into a product, and sell it again and again. You can offer a service, refine it, and let word of mouth grow it beyond your reach. You can take a portion of your wages and invest it into an asset that grows while you sleep. Each of these creates a stream of profits. And don't think you have to start big. Start simple. Maybe it's a weekend side hustle. Maybe it's creating a digital product or a service in your neighborhood. Maybe it's investing just a small piece of your paycheck into something that appreciates. The goal isn't to replace wages overnight. It's to begin the process of adding profits to your life. Because when you add profits to your wages, you start building not just a living, but a fortune. And that's the difference between surviving and truly prospering. If you can't handle a little, you'll never handle a lot. That's a principle life never violates. People sometimes say, if I could just make more money, all my problems would be solved. But the truth is, money only magnifies who you are and how you behave. If you're careless with $100, you'll be reckless with 1,000. If you waste 10% of a small paycheck, you'll waste 10% of a big one. The size of the money doesn't change your habits, it simply exposes them. I remember when I first started out, my mentor told me, don't wait for more money before you learn how to manage it. Learn to manage what you've got, no matter how small. At the time, I thought it was too simple. But he was right. The act of setting aside $1 from 10 built a muscle in me that later allowed me to set aside 10,000 from 100,000. The discipline comes first, the dollars come later. Think of it like lifting weights. You don't walk into the gym and start with 200 pounds. You begin with what you can handle, even if it's just a light bar. Over time, as your strength grows, you can handle more. Money works the same way. Discipline is the strength you build. The amounts will increase only after you've proven you can handle the smaller weights without dropping them. So here's the challenge. Don't dismiss small money as insignificant. Save a little. Give a little. Invest a little, no matter the size. Even if it's just a few dollars, treat them with respect. Create the habit now, and you'll be ready when the bigger opportunities come. Because wealth doesn't start with income, it starts with discipline. One of the simplest rules of money, and yet the one most people break, is this: always spend less than you earn. It doesn't matter if your income is large or small. What matters is the gap between what comes in and what goes out. Wealth is built in that space. Most people try to make the numbers work the other way around. They spend to the limit, and when there's a little extra, they save it. But it never works that way. Expenses have a way of expanding to match income if you don't set boundaries. I learned early that the habit of saving first was more important than the amount. When I was making very little, I disciplined myself to put aside a portion before I touched the rest. At first, it seemed almost pointless. What could a few dollars really do? But over time, those dollars grew, and more importantly, so did my discipline. By the time bigger money came my way, the habit was already in place. I didn't have to think about it, I just did it. Think of it this way: if your bucket has a hole in the bottom, it doesn't matter how much water you pour in, it will never stay full. Spending more than you earn is that hole. No amount of income can fix it. But once you learn to patch the leak, to live below your means, you can finally begin to fill the bucket. So here's the challenge. Decide today to keep a portion of every dollar you earn, pay yourself first, and then live on the rest. Even if it feels small, it will build a foundation that no one can take away from you. Because the truth is, financial freedom doesn't start with income. It starts with discipline. One of the greatest decisions you can ever make is to become financially independent, not financially dependent. Too many people wait for someone else to take care of them, the government, their employer, even their family. But when you place your future in someone else's hands, you also place your limitations there. True wealth, true freedom begins the moment you say, I am responsible for my own financial destiny. That shift in thinking changes everything. I remember when I was young and thought that maybe luck or circumstances would deliver me into wealth. But life taught me quickly that waiting is not a strategy. Depending on others might provide survival, but it will never provide freedom. Freedom comes only when you take the reins and decide that, whatever it takes, you will build something of your own through discipline, through skill, through wise decisions. Becoming financially independent doesn't mean you never receive help, but it means you don't depend on it. If your income comes only from your job, then your boss controls your financial future. If your only plan is retirement checks from the government, then your future is chained to politics and policies. But when you build assets, when you create profits, when you learn to multiply your skills into opportunities, you break that chain. The goal isn't just to have money. It's to have the confidence that you can sustain yourself no matter what happens around you. That confidence comes from building multiple streams of income, from developing skills that are always in demand, and from having the discipline to save and invest consistently. So take full responsibility. Don't wait for someone else to rescue you. Don't lean your ladder on someone else's wall. Put it firmly on your own and climb. Because freedom is never given, it's built. Formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. And there's a world of difference between the two. School can give you the basics. You learn to read, write, add and subtract. You might even pick up a degree that helps you get a good job. But if that's where your education ends, then so will your financial growth. Because financial success doesn't come from classrooms, it comes from continuous learning long after the diploma is framed. I remember when I thought education ended at graduation, but soon after, I realized my paycheck had a ceiling, and that ceiling was tied to the skills I already had. The day I picked up my first book on wealth, my whole perspective shifted. I began to study money itself, how it flows, how it grows, how it disappears if you don't manage it. I studied people who had achieved freedom and modeled what they did. That's when I understood that fortunes aren't built in schools, they're built in libraries, in conversations with mentors, in late nights of self-study when most people are distracted. The truth is, the world pays for value, and value comes from what you've learned and applied beyond the basics. That's why you see some people with no formal degree living in abundance, while others with diplomas on the wall still struggle. The difference is self-education, choosing to invest in your mind, in your financial intelligence, in the skills that increase your worth in the marketplace. Every book you read on investing, every seminar you attend, every hour spent with a mentor, it's not just knowledge, it's capital. And unlike money, this kind of capital can't be taken away. So make self-education a lifelong pursuit. Study money, study success, study failure. Because while formal education may open the first door, it's self-education that builds the mansion. Wealth works a lot like farming. You can't plant a seed in the morning and expect fruit by evening. It doesn't work that way in the soil, and it certainly doesn't work that way with money. Success requires patience, discipline, and the faith to nurture something long before it rewards you. The farmer knows there's a season for planting, a season for watering, and only after consistent care does the harvest come. And wealth is no different. You plant seeds of discipline, of saving, of learning, of investing, and then you give them time to grow. When I was young, I made the mistake of chasing the quick harvest. I thought if I could just work harder, push faster, I'd get rich sooner. But rushing led me to foolish decisions, and those decisions cost me years. It was only when I started treating wealth like farming, step by step, season by season, that things changed. I learned to plant daily disciplines, a percentage of income saved, a few pages read, a few dollars invested. Small things at first, almost invisible, but day after day, those seeds began to sprout. The danger comes when people plant today and expect to harvest tomorrow. They get impatient, pull up the seed, and wonder why nothing grows. But the law of the harvest says, what you sow, you will reap if you don't give up too soon. That's why the rich play the long game. They're willing to sacrifice comfort today for freedom tomorrow. They don't need the fruit right away because they know the tree is growing. So plant now, plant often, and tend the soil with care. Don't worry about how small the seed looks, because hidden inside is a forest of abundance. Wealth is not built in a day, but it is built daily. Plant with faith, and when the season is right, the harvest will not disappoint. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the idea of getting rich quick. The promise sounds so tempting. Overnight wealth, instant success, no effort required. But here's the truth. Anything that comes quickly usually goes just as quickly. It's like building a house on sand. Sure, it may look impressive for a moment, but when the first storm comes, it collapses. Wealth must be built on rock-solid foundations, discipline, patience, and principles that last. I've met people who made fast money, and almost without exception, they lost it even faster. Why? Because their habits weren't ready for the responsibility of wealth. You don't stay rich by accident. You need the structure of daily disciplines, the character to resist impulses, and the wisdom to make sound choices. Without that, fast money will destroy you instead of sustain you. I know because in my early years, I tasted wealth too soon and lost it all just as quickly. That loss taught me that the real treasure isn't the money itself. It's the person you become in the process of earning and keeping it. The steady path may not excite you at first. Saving a small amount, investing regularly, learning daily, these steps can feel too slow in a world that glorifies speed. But remember, slow and steady builds something strong. It's like a tree with deep roots. It may not shoot up overnight, but once it does, it stands firm through every storm. Contrast that with weeds. They grow overnight, but they're gone just as quickly. So whenever you're tempted by a shortcut, remind yourself, the easy way ends up being the hard way, and the hard way becomes the easy way. Build with patience. Let your wealth come through steady effort and wise choices. That way, when it arrives, it stays. Wealth built slowly will last a lifetime and beyond. One of the most powerful rules I ever learned about money is this: pay yourself first. Most people do it the other way around. They pay everyone else first. They pay the landlord, the bank, the grocery store, the credit card company, and if there's anything left at the end of the month, maybe they'll save a little. But here's the problem. There's never anything left. Life has a way of filling every gap you leave open. If you don't make saving and investing mandatory, it simply won't happen. Paying yourself first is not about selfishness. It's about discipline. Think of it as treating your future like a bill that must be paid. The electric company won't let you skip a payment. Why should you let your own financial future go unpaid? Every dollar you earn carries with it a choice. Do you consume it now, or do you set a portion aside to work for you tomorrow? If you spend it all, your money disappears into someone else's pocket. But if you save and invest it, even a small portion, it begins to grow, and over time, it works harder than you do. When I was young, I didn't understand this principle, and I paid the price. I let money slip through my fingers because I didn't assign it a job. But once I learned to write the first check to myself, before I paid the rent, before I bought groceries, before I did anything else, my financial life began to change. It didn't take much. 10% of my income, set aside consistently, was enough to begin building momentum, and that momentum eventually became wealth. Here's the secret. It's not the amount that matters at the beginning, it's the habit. Start small if you must, but start. The discipline of paying yourself first builds confidence, creates security, and lays the foundation for freedom. If you can master this one habit, you'll never again wonder where your money went. You'll know exactly where it's going. And best of all, it will be going to work for you. Money, like life, moves in seasons. Just as a farmer knows when to plant and when to reap, we too must understand the seasons of money. If you plant in the wrong season, you waste good seed. If you try to harvest when it's time to nurture, you'll end up empty-handed. The same goes for finances. You have to know where you are in the cycle. There's a season to learn. That's the springtime of money. It's when you study, when you pick up new skills, when you prepare yourself for opportunities you cannot yet see. Too many people skip this season. They want to jump straight to harvest without ever planting the seed of education. But if you don't know how money works, you'll spend your whole life working for it instead of letting it work for you. Then comes the season to invest. That's when you take what you've learned and put it into practice. You plant your capital like a seed in the ground. You may not see results right away, but if you've planted wisely, you can trust that growth is happening beneath the surface. This requires patience. You don't dig up a seed every day to see if it's growing. You let it take root. Next is the season to harvest. That's when years of discipline and patience pay off. It's when your investments produce income, when the sacrifices you made earlier finally give you freedom. But here's the key. You can only harvest if you planted and tended the fields during the earlier seasons. No planting, no harvest. And finally, there's the season to protect. When the harvest comes in, don't leave it exposed. Store some away. Guard it from foolish risks. Guard it from unnecessary spending. And guard it from those who would misuse it. The wisdom of wealth is not to rush through the seasons, but to master each one. If you can respect the cycle, you can turn even modest beginnings into abundance. One of the great mistakes people make with money is drifting. They say things like, I just want to be rich, or I'd like to have more someday. But vague goals lead to vague results. Wealth doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to clarity. If you want to build a fortune, you must first decide exactly what that fortune looks like. When I was struggling financially, I remember a mentor asking me, how much do you want to earn this year? I gave him the usual answer, as much as I can. He shook his head and said, that's not a goal, that's a wish. Write down a number, be specific. That moment changed everything. I sat down with a pad of paper and wrote what I wanted to earn, what I wanted to save, what I wanted to invest, and even what I wanted to give. For the first time, my financial future wasn't a cloud of hope, it was a set of targets I could aim at. Here's why clarity matters. The mind works best when it has something definite to pursue. If you write down, I will save $10,000 this year, your behavior begins to align with that outcome. You look at your spending differently. You evaluate opportunities differently. And little by little, your actions match your aim. Without that clarity, It's easy to justify waste, to drift from paycheck to paycheck, always working hard but never moving closer to freedom. The simple act of writing down financial goals gives your money purpose. It turns earning into a mission, saving into a discipline, and investing into a strategy. And the beauty is, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be intentional. Even if you fall short, you'll be far ahead of where you'd be with no target at all. So take the time to put your goals in writing, be specific, be bold, and review them often. Wealth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. One of the greatest financial lessons I ever learned was this: don't buy luxury until you own equity. The temptation is strong. When money first starts flowing, the urge is to spend it on the things you've always wanted. A new car, a bigger house, fancy clothes, trips, gadgets. I know, because I did it. When I first made good money, I thought the purpose of wealth was display. I bought things to impress people, to prove I had arrived. But soon, I realized the truth. If you buy luxuries before you build assets, you're not wealthy, you're just decorating poverty. The real game of money is ownership, not consumption. Equity means something that lasts, something that grows, something that works while you sleep. It could be a piece of real estate, a business, a stock portfolio, even intellectual property. Assets put money into your pocket. Liabilities take it out. Most people get the order backward. They buy the liabilities first and spend a lifetime working to keep them. The wealthy do it differently. They acquire assets first and let those assets fund the luxuries later. Think about it like planting an orchard. If you eat the seed, you'll have a moment of pleasure, but no harvest. If you plant the seed, nurture the tree, and wait, soon the fruit comes in abundance. Then you can eat all you like, and the tree keeps producing. That's what assets do. They produce fruit year after year, and it's the fruit that buys the pleasures without touching the tree. So here's the discipline. Every time you're tempted by luxury, ask yourself, do I own enough equity to justify this? If the answer is no, redirect that money into assets. Build your orchard first, then enjoy the fruit. The watch, the car, the vacation, they feel different when they're paid for by investments instead of paychecks. Wealth is not about how good you look, it's about how solid your foundation island. Build equity first, and the luxuries will take care of themselves. There's an old fable about a farmer who had a goose that laid golden eggs. Every morning, without fail, the goose produced another egg of pure gold. But the farmer grew impatient, and instead of protecting the goose, he destroyed it, thinking he could get all the eggs at once. In the end, he was left with nothing. That story carries one of the greatest lessons about money. Once you have something producing for you, your job is to guard it, not gamble it away. Wealth, once created, must be protected. Too many people work hard to build assets only to lose them through carelessness, unnecessary risks, or neglect. A single accident, a poor investment decision, or an overlooked detail can wipe out years of discipline. That's why protecting the goose, the source of your wealth, is just as important as building it. What does protection look like in practical terms? It means having the right insurance. Insure your health, because poor health can drain your finances faster than almost anything else. Insure your home, your business, and your income streams. Protection also means guarding your time. If your time is constantly stolen by distractions, your wealth suffers. Guard your focus as carefully as your money. And most importantly, protection means wisdom in decision making. Never risk what you can't afford to lose. I remember early in my journey when I took a reckless risk with money I couldn't afford to lose. I thought ambition alone would protect me, but I learned the hard way. Ambition must be paired with caution. Once I began treating my wealth like that golden goose, everything changed. I built not just assets, but safeguards around them. The goal is not just to create golden eggs, but to ensure the goose keeps laying them for years to come. Protect your wealth, and it will protect you. One of the greatest paradoxes of money is that the more tightly you hold on to it, the less it seems to serve you. But when you give, when you open your hand, something remarkable happens. You not only help others, you also enlarge your own capacity to receive. Generosity creates abundance. It may sound backward, but it's a principle woven into the fabric of life itself. I remember the first time I gave a significant portion of what little I had. I was nervous. I thought, what if I need this later? What if I come up short? But I gave anyway. And what I discovered was that giving changed me more than it changed the person receiving. It told me I wasn't living in fear anymore. I wasn't operating from scarcity. I was telling the world and myself that I had enough and that more was on the way. Giving also keeps you humble. When you begin to build wealth, it's easy to start thinking only in terms of accumulation, always asking, how much more can I get? But giving shifts the question to, how much more can I contribute? That change of focus keeps money from becoming your master. It reminds you that wealth is a tool for impact, not just comfort. Generosity doesn't have to start big. It could be $5, an act of service, a meal shared, or knowledge freely given. What matters is the spirit behind it. And here's the fascinating thing. When you give, you tend to attract more opportunities, relationships, and even financial returns often find their way to those who practice generosity. It's as if life rewards the open hand. So make it a habit to give, not after you're wealthy, but as you build. Because giving is not just something you do once you're rich. It's part of what makes you rich. One of the most difficult but powerful lessons I ever learned about money and life is the ability to say no. Most people end up broke, tired, and frustrated because they try to say yes to everything, yes to every invitation, yes to every purchase, yes to every request for their time and resources. But here's the truth. Every yes is also a no. Every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else, often the very things that matter most to your financial future. Wealthy people understand this. They are selective, not careless, with their commitments. They know that their time and their money are limited resources, and if they scatter them everywhere, they lose the power of focus. The secret is learning to say no, not with bitterness, but with clarity. No to wasteful spending. No to obligations that drain energy but produce nothing. No to opportunities that promise quick gains but carry high risks. By saying no to what doesn't serve your vision, you leave room to say yes to what does. I can remember a time when I stretched myself too thin, both financially and personally, trying to keep everyone happy. I thought generosity meant saying yes to every request. But all it did was leave me stressed and broke. The day I realized that no is also an act of wisdom was the day I started to build real wealth. Protecting your resources is not selfish, it's stewardship. The discipline of saying no is really the discipline of protecting your priorities. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your goals, you're really saying yes to your future self. You're saying yes to freedom, yes to growth, and yes to the life you're working to build. So practice the power of no, because sometimes the most valuable investment you can make is in the opportunities you decline. Time is more valuable than money. That truth took me longer to understand than I care to admit. You see, money has this amazing quality. It can multiply. You can invest it, you can grow it, you can replace it when it's lost. But time, once a day is gone, it's gone forever. no investment, no business, no deal can buy you back the hours you wasted. That's why the wealthy put such a high price on their time. They guard it, they allocate it carefully, and they treat it like the precious, non-renewable asset that it island. When I was young, I thought that if I just worked harder and longer hours, everything would fall into place. But all I did was trade my time for money, and I missed out on opportunities to multiply both. The breakthrough came when I realized I had to stop asking, how much does this pay? And start asking, how much is this worth to my time? That's when things shifted. I began to outsource tasks that didn't require my energy, and I invested my hours in higher value activities, studying, creating, building relationships, and developing systems that could work without me. Here's the simple truth. You can always find ways to make money, but you will never find a way to manufacture more time. That means every wasted hour is more expensive than every wasted dollar. If you spend money recklessly, you can recover. But if you spend time recklessly, the loss is permanent. So I began to schedule my time as carefully as I scheduled my finances. I asked myself daily, is this the highest and best use of my hours? That one question helped me eliminate distractions, focus on meaningful work, and build a life rich not only in money, but in moments. Guard your time like treasure, because it island. And when you learn to use both time and money wisely, you will discover that one can always be replaced, but the other never can. Leaving a legacy is far greater than leaving an inheritance. An inheritance is simply money, property, or things, and while that can help, it doesn't guarantee the next generation will know what to do with it. But a legacy, that's wisdom, principles, and discipline passed on. That's the difference between wealth that lasts one lifetime and wealth that lasts for generations. I once knew a man who inherited a sizable fortune. Within just a few years, it was gone. Why? Because nobody had taught him the rules of money. He knew how to spend, but not how to build. He knew how to enjoy wealth, but not how to preserve it. Compare that to another family I knew. Much smaller inheritance, but rich in education, discipline, and values. Their children multiplied the wealth, not just financially, but in character and contribution. The difference wasn't the size of the inheritance, it was the strength of the legacy. That's why, as I began to understand the principles of wealth, I made it a mission not only to practice them, but to teach them. To my children, my students, and my community. I taught the importance of saving, of giving, of investing, of patience. I taught them that wealth isn't about cars and houses, it's about freedom and contribution. If I had left them only money, it might have lasted a few years. But by leaving principles, I left them something that could last a lifetime. Think of it this way. When you plant a tree, you don't just enjoy the fruit, you provide shade for others, long after you're gone. That's what Legacy Island. It's fruit and shade that outlives you. So don't just pass on what you've earned, pass on what you've learned, because knowledge outlasts cash, and wisdom multiplies far beyond what money alone can do. Teach, guide, and live as an example, and your true wealth will echo for generations. Wealth is not just money, it's a mindset. If you wait until the money arrives to think like a wealthy person, you'll never keep it. The truth is, fortune follows the mindset, not the other way around. Long before the bank account grows, the thinking must grow. It starts with how you see yourself, how you see opportunity, and how you see responsibility. I remember when I was broke, barely able to pay my bills. But my mentor told me something powerful. Don't see yourself as broke. See yourself as on your way. That changed everything. Instead of thinking, I can't afford it, I started asking, how can I afford it? Instead of waiting for circumstances to change, I changed my perspective first. And slowly, the external world began to catch up with the internal world I had created. Wealthy thinking is about discipline. Poor thinking says, spend it if you've got it. Wealthy thinking says, save some, invest some, give some, live on the rest. Poor thinking looks for shortcuts. Wealthy thinking looks for principles. Poor thinking says, I hope. Wealthy thinking says, I plan. The money only amplifies who you already are. If you're careless with a little, you'll be careless with a lot. But if you're disciplined with a little, you'll be wise with much.